Today we are working on Psalm 121. Now, typically Psalm 121 is used for protection while traveling, but it's actually used for safety on any level. If you think of traveling through life as our journey, the idea of this world being a place that we travel through. So anytime that you feel like you need more safety in any regard, this is a great psalm to go with. The way we work psalm spells is very simple and effective. We take the psalm that we're working and we read it out loud all the way through once without stopping, and we call this an incantation. And then we go back through that same psalm, verse by verse, and we dig and search and find inner occult meanings, and we see these as seeds, magical seeds, that through this digging and plowing the fields of our mind by searching for these meanings, we're actually planting these seeds down in the fertile ground of our deep mind, where they take root and they grow and they blossom forth, and then they bear fruit after their kind. And that's what we're going to do together right now with Psalm 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. So this is a nice brief psalm. It's one that you could even memorize if you ever felt unsafe. But let's get through this now. And let's dig and find these seeds and plant these seeds deeply in our minds so that we are constantly claiming and realizing our divine safety. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills. Okay, there's a couple things that you want to think about when you're lifting your eyes up to the hills. For one thing, if you lift your eyes up, then you're looking above. You're seeking above your circumstances for help. But if you look at the hills as being problems, as being where you feel like there's unsafety, you don't know what's hiding in those hills, but you're not running away from your problems. You're not running away from that which is scaring you or which might be unsafe. You're lifting up your eyes right to it. And it says, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. So some people turn this into a question because there's no punctuation in ancient Hebrew. So there's always this misunderstanding or disagreement as to how to read this particular psalm. So some people say, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help, as if it's a question. And if you think of it that way, it's a good thing to do. You're asking yourself, okay, I'm lifting up my eyes and seeing that there's possible danger. So where do I get my help? But there's another way to look at it that's just as valid. And you're saying, I will lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. That in the midst of any perceived danger, your help exists already. So if you're looking at the danger, you can say, my help comes from within the danger itself. It's in the midst of it. It's not coming from the hills. It's not the hills itself that are bringing your help, but it's within any danger that the help is already at hand. So understanding that help is already at hand in the midst of the danger gives you a real understanding of the truth of why you're already safe. And just the realizing of this brings that safety into actuality. Then it says, my help cometh from the Lord. Now, always we have to define and orient ourselves to what we mean by the Lord. So even though in the ancient scriptures, the Lord was usually YHVH, which is the tetragrammaton. And a lot of people will interpret that as being the tribal Lord of ancient Israel. That's not the way that we look at things magically. Magically, the tetragrammaton simply, or the Lord, simply is that pre-gender Godhead that is the one source of all life, and that there is nothing to oppose it. There is nothing to thwart it. There's only one. And so since there is nothing to oppose it, when you are one with God, then your safety is assured, and there's no way that you can be harmed. So it says, my help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. So when we say that the Lord made heaven and earth, heaven is the dwelling place of God, and it's our dwelling place as well. It's where we were created to live. Earth is our circumstances. So if we look at the earth that God made versus the earth that we've created, that gives us an idea of where our safety lies. If you put your future in the hands of God and you say, I want the earth that God made, not my earth, it gives you a real quick understanding of why you're so safe. The reason why we're not safe here is because this world that we see is a world of our own projections. But if we look at the world as God created it, if we ask God to show us the world as God created it, as they created it, then we see things very differently. And the circumstances are very different in the earth that God created versus the earth that we are projecting. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Okay, so if your foot is moved, for one thing, that you can slip, you can fall, but you can also, that's another way of looking at your foot being moved is being persuaded into going into places that are not safe for you, or making mistakes and making choices and decisions to move your feet into certain directions which are not safe. So he will not suffer my foot to be moved, meaning that my foot is going to stay right where God wants it, right where God tells me that my foot's supposed to be. I want to be an extension of God's will, not my own will. Therefore, if God wills it, then it's right where it's supposed to be, and I don't have to worry about a thing. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Well, God doesn't sleep. Why would God sleep? God doesn't need to sleep. God doesn't need to rest. God is all. God is one. God is the creator. God is the one creator. There's only one. And it's really important to realize that we have not any separation from our creator in reality. We believe we do in this world, but this world is a lie. There is no spot where God is not. There is no place in your life that is not absolutely 100% divinely guided and protected. And it's our realization of that fact that moves us into God's world rather than our own world and keeps us safe. And just remember that God doesn't sleep. It's not like, oh God, I hope God's awake. I hope God's awake, because if God falls asleep, then I won't be protected. We don't need to worry about that. There is no time, there is no place where God is not constantly on it. God is not constantly with us, but we have free will, and we can start to dream dreams and nightmares, which we believe that we're separate and that we're unsafe and that we're vulnerable and that we can be attacked and that bad things can happen to us. We can dream those dreams, and God just has to sit patiently by and wait for us to wake up. Or we can ask that we be gently guided and awakened by God. And that's what we're doing with this psalm. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Well, God keeps Israel, but Israel is you. Israel is not some tribe in ancient times, or a group of tribes in ancient times. Israel is you. It is your soul. It is your reality. It is who God created you to be. And we always like to point out that those 3 syllables of Israel represent feminine, masculine, and divine, all in balance. It's a triune existence of who you are. That is Isis, Ra, and El, God. Isis, Ra, and God. That's who you are as a soul. And that's how you were created. And that's how, and it says that you are created perfect, and behold that he that keepeth Israel. So God keeps you. God minds you. God helps you. God protects you. God is always there. And he never sleeps and he never slumbers. And I say he because it says that it says that in the Psalm, but it's a they. It's a pre-gender experience. There's absolutely no separation. There's no place that you can find in your life where God does not keep you. But we can believe that God doesn't keep us, and we can create experiences for ourselves and where we try to prove that God doesn't keep us. And we're not going to do that anymore. The Lord is thy keeper. So God is your keeper. Now, what is a keeper? Think about a housekeeper. The housekeeper keeps everything organized, makes sure everything is well, run. Think about somebody that keeps like a bank is a keeper of money. It keeps it safe. It makes sure that everything is that everything is copacetic and safe and by the books, right? Well, imagine a divine keeper, meaning that God can't make mistakes. Like a bank could make a mistake, a housekeeper could make a mistake, but God doesn't make mistakes. So if God's keeping you, then you have all bases covered. You have nothing to worry about. So wherever your unsafety is in your mind, maybe you feel unsafe physically, maybe you feel unsafe about disease, maybe you feel unsafe about your money, maybe you feel unsafe about your relationship, maybe you feel unsafe about all kinds of things. But God's on it. God's keeping you. And do you think that God's just kind of an idiot that can't figure things out? No, that's not the case at all. But what happens is we think, oh, God's not going to do this, or God's going to forget me, or there is no God, or all those kinds of thoughts. And then I better do it myself. And then you run in, and then if you're doing it yourself, remember, you're informed by incorrect ideas of who you are. You think that you're separate and all alone in the universe. You think that you have to come up with all kinds of ideas to keep yourself safe and protected. And the more we do that, the more we reiterate the idea that there's no help at hand. And again, free will is one of the bottom line laws of God. And so while we take over our own lives, God's not going to come in and say, you can't do that. I'm going to make you do it my way. God has to wait patiently for us to let God have the reins again. So remind yourself, I place my future in the hands of God. I place my future in the hands of God. I place this situation in the hands of God, whatever it is. I place my past in the hands of God. If I'm feeling regret or anything like that, I place everything in the hands of God, and I trust and I know that God is on it. Remember, God is all power. God is all knowing. God is infinite intelligence. God is omnipotence. There's only one power. There's only one force in all the universe. And if we recognize that, if we realize that, when you realize something, then it becomes real for you. So the more we realize the truth, the more the truth has an avenue to prove itself to us. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. Well, the right hand is the hand if you're left-handed, then it means your left hand, okay? It's just talking about the hand that you take your nourishment with. It's the hand that you write with. It's the hand that you have utility with, and it's the hand that you would defend yourself with if you were in a sword fight. Right? So it's your right hand is your power hand, according to the idea that we used to think that everybody was right-handed. So if you're left-handed, then it's talking about your left hand. So, but the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. So when we're talking about God being a shade, that means God is protecting it. God's shading it from the hot sun. But if you go a little further with that, you can say that the shading of your right hand is God, take over my right hand. Work through me. Show me what to do. Show me what you want me to do. I'm not going to think all by myself. I'm not going to make up all these decisions all on my own because I get in trouble. That's when I'm not safe, is when I'm thinking all by myself, trying to be separate from you. So God, you guide me. You show me what to do. Let the hand be an extension of your hand. And then it's totally different, isn't it? The sun shall not smite thee. Now all of a sudden the pronoun changes. So it happens in these. It's poetic in these psalms. So, but you can imagine that even God is speaking to you now, or you can imagine that that some great teacher is speaking to you. Maybe your inner guide is speaking to you right now. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. Okay, so let's look at these in a more occult sense. The sun not smiting thee by day means my conscious thoughts are now under the direction of God. My conscious thoughts, I'm not going to entertain conscious thoughts that smite me, self-destructive thoughts. I'm not going to use my mind unwisely. And how do you change your mind? By changing your words. You can't always guard your mind, but you can always guard your words. And your words are the way in which your mind is most readily actualized. So if you look at this where it says the sun shall not smite thee by day, that means my conscious mind is not going to be using thoughts that are self-destructive. That means that I'm not going to let myself say negative things. I'm not going to let myself say negative things. I'm not going to let myself say self-destructive things. Watch your words. Give yourself an entire day where you don't let yourself say a negative word. And if you do, that you correct it immediately, especially casual speech that shows you what you're thinking. Nor the moon by night. That means my unconscious mind, that my deep mind. So my deep mind is not going to smite me. I'm allowing God to come in and cleanse my deep mind, my subconscious mind, if you will. I'm going to let my deep mind be cleansed so that I'm not constantly being smited by my own thoughts. Therefore, I'm going to be safe because my lack of safety has nothing to do with anything outside of me. My lack of safety is because of the thoughts that I'm entertaining that are trying to separate me from my Creator. So the sun shall not smite me by day, my conscious thoughts, nor the moon by night, my unconscious thoughts. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. Not just a couple. There's not some sorts of evil that is just like, ooh, that's too big for God. That's too much for me. No, all evil. Why? Because there's no order of difficulty. God doesn't look at things and say, okay, this is hard, this is easy, this is big, this is small, this is too much, this is just enough. God looks at everything as being, this is true and this is false. And if you allow God's judgment into any situation and allow God to separate the true from the false and throw out the false for you on your behalf, then if all you have is God's thoughts with you, what do you have to worry about? Because there's nothing that can harm you. There's nothing that can harm you. So the Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. Now, evil means anything that's not good. Now, you can think of the things that are not good that you're afraid of, right? You can think of the things that are not good in your life that you're worried might happen or that you're feeling unsafe about. Well, the Lord, meaning infinite intelligence, infinite power, shall preserve thee from all evil. It's not some little personal God that's going to save you from all evil, because it's the creator of the universe that's going to preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. Well, let's look at that. When you say preserve thy soul, your soul doesn't really need preserving, because your soul's just fine. There's nothing anybody could do to your soul, because it's already preserved by God. But when you put it in the future like that, it's just reassuring you, you're already fine. You're already just fine. Your soul is fine. There's nothing you can do to your soul. There's no way that you could harm your soul. But what you can do is fall asleep to the fact that you're a soul and create and concoct an entire experience and lifetime here where you feel unsafe, and that you have a lot of proof that you're unsafe, and generations of people have proven that we're unsafe here, and we are in a big habit of being unsafe in this world, because this world is a big mass hallucination that we have been projecting for millions of years. Okay? But that doesn't matter to God. That's not a big deal. God recognizes that we're just asleep. So when God shall preserve thy soul, it's meaning that you're fine just the way you are. You're already fine. Now, if you wake up to the fact that your soul can't be harmed, then you recognize that you no longer need to project lies about being harmed. And you don't know how to do that all by yourself. That's why you're coming to a psalm. Let God do it for you. Let God do it for you. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in. Now that's so important, and you can do this for yourself. This can be a challenging discipline, but it's one that I recommend. And don't worry if you forget and you get it wrong, because it can be challenging for people. But just the idea of trying to do this will make a huge difference in your life. Every time you leave a building, remember that I am safe and protected. Anytime you come into a building, remind yourself, I am safe and protected. Just you're going out and you're coming in. Make it that practical. Anytime I leave any kind of dwelling or building, anytime I'm going through a door from inside of a building to the outside, and vice versa, coming back into a building, I'm going to remind myself, I am safe and protected. I'm safe and protected by the love of the universe. Let that be a thought that you carry with you at all moments of time and points of space. Anytime you don't feel safe, just remind yourself, I am safe and protected by the universe. Anytime you come in, anytime you go out, and anytime you don't feel safe, I'm safe and protected by the love of the universe. Those words will protect you and keep you safe. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. So here we are, the only two places in the world, the Psalms and fairy tales, where everything is all about ever after, happily ever after. This is your happily ever after. The Psalm is giving you the formula for happily ever after. It's allowing yourself to be preserved by God. You're going out and you're coming in from this time forth and forevermore. You can commit that to memory. The Lord shall preserve my going out and my coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Put it in the first person, right? And just remind yourself, you can condense that. I am safe and protected by the love of the universe, here and now. Nothing can ever oppose that thought if you say it and you mean it, and you keep that going over and over again. So you keep coming back to the psalm until you start feeling safe. And once you start feeling peace about whatever the situation is that you brought to this psalm, and once you start feeling safe about the situation that brought you to this psalm, then you can move off of this and go on to some other goal. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Much love and many, many blessings.